Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Talk with Ray and Mike. How's it going? How you doing, Ray?
Oh, pretty good, Mike.
So we're sitting here. We usually work with standard time timesheets,
Right.
and we talk a lot about standard time. And as we were doing that, we started talking a lot about tech and how cool it would be to have a podcast talking about stuff in the tech world that maybe some people don't really know how it works, or it's new technology. And so here we are, Tech Talk with Mike and Ray.
Yeah. So I have a really neat thing to share, and I'll let you kick it off. But something really interesting here that I had to come up to speed with to learn about. And I'm sure a lot of people would like to know about this.
Yeah. So again, we were talking, and I told you about this cool thing at our library that now instead of going to the librarian and checking it out a book one by one by one,
right,
you put a pile of books on the scanner thing, and boop, your books are checked out.
Yeah. So how's that work?
Yeah, it's crazy. And you grab your books, it prints out a receipt, and you're on your way. Literally no more lines at our local library.
Yeah.
And so I asked you, what is this? And of course, Ray knows everything tech.
I found out. And you know what I found? I found that people are working on this for grocery markets.
Really?
So you know how now you have to pull your cart up and place things on the belt, and they go to the clerk, and the clerk scans them. They're all barcode scanned.
Right.
And then they place them in bags, and then they go out into your cart again. And so there's this whole process of, product by product going up onto the belt and then back into your cart 10 feet away.
Right. Scanning. I need a price check on
one at a time.
Yep.
So what if you could pull your cart up to the clerk and the whole cart is scanned at once, just like the books at the library?
That's insane.
And so people are working on that now. And the technology behind that is RFID.
What the heck is RFID?
All right. Well, so the RF part of it stands for radio frequency.
Okay.
And so the ID part, the RFID, the last part, stands for identification. So really all you're talking about is a little chip that operates on radio frequency and is able to transmit IDs over the airwaves. That's really all it is. It's pretty simple.
And it could check out my books.
Yes, that's how you're able to place an entire stack of books onto the scanner, and all of a sudden, boom, it just sees them all. Well, how does it do that? It does it through radio frequency over the air, and it's able to just pick up these RFID tags. Each book has a tag inside of it, and they look a lot like this. They're just little...
They're stickers.
Yeah, they're little sticker. They're adhesive. You can get rolls of 1,000 of these things, and then you just peel them off one at a time, stick them on the book, and you can see each one of these has a little antenna. That's what this little silvery stuff is. But then, did you notice the little dot there in the middle of it?
Yeah.
That little dot about the size of it's about half the size of a grain of sand.
Yeah.
That's the chip. That whole
Really?
RFID thing, the little tiny dot is the active ingredient. That's the little thing that that this operates on.
So why is the antenna so big on that thing?
Well, they need to receive a lot of energy, and it takes a large antenna to receive the energy. So you ever seen those little toothbrushes? I think Philips make one, Sonic Care. I forget the names of them.
They always put them in the water and it splashes everywhere.
Yeah, but you set them down on a little base, and then you pick them up and you can use them.
Right.
Well, they are energized through that little base. There's no wires. And so they're energized the same way these are. You have basically a coil of wire, okay? Mm-hmm. This is getting a little techie, but you have two coils of wire. One coil of wire, in this case, in the receiver, is in here.
Okay.
And this coil of wire puts out energy, okay? It's at a radio frequency. It's not audio, so you can't hear it, but it's the same thing, basically putting out radio frequency energy. And you got this other coil of wire that's in close proximity. So you got these two tags, let's say. You hold it up close to it, and it receives it.
Okay.
Kind of bump the microphone there, but you get the idea. You put it in close proximity. So what you've got is 2 coils of wire. You've got radio frequency transmitted from one to the other, and that's why it needs such a big antenna.
Okay. So at one of my previous jobs, high security. I'm not military or anything, so right. I don't know any secrets. Don't contact me. But they gave me a card, like a credit card looking thing, that I just tap the door. Right
like
there.
This, yeah. So it's just
tap
like
the
a
door,
credit
it unlocks
card.
the door, and I can go in, and
boom,
no one gets hurt.
Yeah. So it's just like this. You hold it up close to the receiver, and it just
it unlocks the door.
So how does it work? Same thing. Basically,
Really?
It's like these little adhesive things, but it's encased in plastic. It's the same basic idea.
Okay. So here's a question. My dog has a chip in its neck.
Yeah.
Is that RFID as well?
It is, right. So that's just encased in plastic as well, so that it's antimicrobial. The pet isn't going to get sick from it. Basically, you can just slide it under the skin or in between layers of the skin.
Ouch.
Works the exact same way as these do. They get within 2 inches of the receiver. Boom.
They know where the dog's at.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit like a license tag, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get a little biblical here, a little apocalyptic.
Yeah.
So, some people say that the number of the beast,
Yeah, there's a Bible prophecy.
Yeah, where on your forehead or on your arm. This sounds pretty scary, man.
Yeah.
Especially now that I know that the devil's after my dog.
There's a million people that speculate as to whether or how that was. Remember back in the 60s and 70s, it was all barcodes. Remember you used to hear about putting a barcode on your forehead and things like that?
I've seen the pictures in the little books that people would hand out. I forgot
the tracks.
The tracks, the Bible track things.
Well, now it's on to, RFID because it's invisible.
It seems more realistic.
It does, but no one really knows what technology that's going to be. But pretty much, I think it says you can't buy. You can't go into a grocery store and buy anything without this, whatever it is. And it makes sense because there's so much fraud. It's easy to steal this and that. Trying to improve credit cards and all that doesn't work. All that stuff. So
because I've heard on the news and such, on articles that I've read, that people are just going to start scanning their arm or looking into an iris thing scanner.
Yeah, you can't steal an arm.
Yeah, can't steal an arm. Well, you can if you're in Mission Impossible, right?
Well, there's another movie, I think, where they pluck out eyeballs and
put it on a stick or on a pencil. What movie was that? That was a good movie.
I do remember that.
So this is one step closer to maybe something government control, new world order.
Sure, right. But now
it's just finding my dog.
Right, and it's a lot of other uses.
Okay.
There's really, if you think about it, there's a lot of reasons that RFID makes sense. Standard Time uses RFID to start and stop a timer. And that would be used for things like tracking packages and assembly line on the shop floor.
What a great idea.
You already talked about the cards and tracking employee time because you need to know when people come and go and what time they spend at the shop, the office. And so Standard Time will start and stop a timer. With that, you see all their time show up in the timesheet. There's a lot of other reasons. You got them in shipping containers, passports, toll. You drive under the little sensor there. And you got the little thing on your windshield that zoom. Is
that what that is? That's an RFID.
That's RFID. That's all it is.
And then I get something in the mail saying I owe the state of the city of Denver $50 million.
And I heard that went strictly to that. You cannot throw change into those things anymore. You have to have the RFID tag.
Right.
So that's all they are. They're radio frequency tags, just like these. These little round things.
So that's what those big white boxes above.
Yes,
the big drive under them.
So they are basically this little reader thing. This is a little tiny reader thing that can use for one little tag. But those big ones that you see up above, those are basically these readers. And then you've got the little boxes that you stick onto your windshield. Those are like these little tags.
Okay.
So it's all RFID. You got them on door access. You talked about going in and out of, sensitive areas. You got your employee badge. You just wave it in front. Boom, beep. Opens up the door.
You had mentioned passports
right
before the show. What would that
It's
do?
really easy to take one of these little things and embed it or stick it onto your passport, so that when you come and go through customs, through other things, they know exactly who you are. It's harder to fake, than paper.
Right. Is that going to defeat? Would that make them stop stamping my passport? Because a lot of people stamp.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole reason of having a passport.
But what if you had an electronic stamp? So instead of just looking down and here are my stamps, what if it just came up on a screen? You just bleep. You pass your passport under, and there's all your stamps right there on the screen. It's another way of looking at it, and I think that does cut down on some of that fraud.
Okay.
So,
and what about I'm a football fan, or swimming. I like in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I like.
So I got another thing over here. This little rubber wristband is an RFID.
Really?
Believe it or not. So basically inside here is the chip, and then you can just put this wristband on. Let's say you're swimming. This is waterproof. You can, swim your laps or whatever, and or running, hurdles, all these different sporting events where you have, remember the old photo finish where they take a photo to tell who won?
Won by a nose.
Yeah, right? Exactly right. Well, you don't need that. Because now the tag, whoever comes past with the tag once, you could put it on a horse.
You could probably embed it on a horse's nose.
Exactly.
And so he can at least still win by a nose.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. So, the days of the photo finish and those sorts of things, they may go. I don't know when or if, but they may go away. Because you have the RFID,
right.
You know exactly where a certain thing is. You can take things like this is an active RFID. So there's passive and active. We haven't really talked about that, but you can fix this onto high-value assets. You know exactly where those assets are. They can pull down GPS, transmit that, and then just by scanning. And you put a little battery in the little lithium battery in these things, and they'll transmit for a mile. It's like a cell phone.
Now when you were showing me this stuff before the show, you had mentioned something about military on those kind of scanners,
right?
Or RFIDs, tags.
Yeah.
Oh, explain that to me again.
So, what if you took a tag like this? This is a little 2-inch brick. I mean, a little tiny thing. Of course, it's. 20 years from now, this thing will be the size of your fingernail. But
right.
Imagine having a little brick like this that's on every Jeep, tank, every person, and imagine you're out on a battlefield. You got the chaos of war. You don't know where anything is, and you're firing on your own people. That's friendly fire.
Right.
What if all the alarm bells went off and said, hey, you're firing on your own men? Because every asset is tagged. You know exactly where your men are, and you don't fire on your own men. And this can tell you.
Be?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure the military is probably using... it would not be wise not to be doing that with knowing that technology's out there.
Right. And as time goes on, that becomes obvious, and we start hearing about this.
Right.
Along with all the other drones and other things that are happening that we start hearing about. RFID. Yeah. Way to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do these chips hold personal information? So if I were to get one on my dog.
Right.
Is that going to have my social security number on it? Can it be hacked and then someone gets my garage code? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, right. The answer is yes and no. Some of the tags, like these little simple ones you see here, like these are little strips. There's no electronics inside this. These are not powered. They actually receive their power from the radio frequency, and they light up. In other words, they power up because of that power they're getting. and that all that's inside here is, maybe about 10,000 transistors, and that's enough to operate in a sequence that transmits like let's say a 10-digit code. That's it. That's all that's inside of these things.
Really? Okay.
Now, you're thinking 10,000 transistors, but the average microprocessor has nearly 2 billion transistors, and the size of your fingernail. So getting, 10, 20,000 transistors, enough to act as an intelligent agent to be able to transmit the ID. Oh, that's all that's inside these. It's just IDs, and they're not your social. Now,
this might sound, I don't know, dumb, but I'm actually seriously wondering this. So if this makes me look stupid, I'm sorry. But I'm sure someone else is wondering this. You say 10,000 transistors and, a microchip the size of your fingernail or a grain of sand.
Oh, yeah, right.
Are these made by hand, or are there like machines that are like meticulously like soldering the stuff? Or
yeah, these all occur by actually growing material onto a substrate, and so they are essentially printed or grown on just by attracting through sort of like an electrolysis type process,
like a magnet, really.
It's like that it attracts electrons, and so you can just pass a piece of silicon or other substrate under an emitter, and that just lays down tracks which end up in the form of transistors, all microscopic. You think 2 billion transistors on a microprocessor that you have in your PC and your laptop. 10,000 is nothing. Remember back in the old days, they had these you'd get a 6 transistor radio. Remember that? They'd put it on the radio, 6 transistor radio.
Yeah. And that's like billions.
Yeah, now it's billions. But I remember seeing one of these little radios that had 6 or 10 transistors. I think, wow, that is so awesome.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so you can imagine where this is going, the size of these. I heard a story where someone was strapping, I say the word strapping, they were fixing these little RFID tags to ants that would go down into the ant hill, and they could tell their motions, their daily habits. You could tell where the ants were going, but they were so small, the tags were so small that the ant didn't really know they were there. But they were able to track the entire motion, the daily life of these ants in the colonies.
So is this the same with the ants? Is that when I see a buck with a necklace on and a box with an antenna coming out, is that an RFID, or is that something different?
I think that's an older technology where it is radio frequency. They are transmitting, but I think that is a lot like a little bit more like a cell phone, I would say.
Okay.
Where it has some sort of a cellular connection, and they're going to a network. Mm-hmm. I don't really know the wildlife usage here, but I don't think they're RFIDs.
Okay, I'm assuming that they would eventually go to that. Because it would leave that animal less marked as far as
just like your
its
pet
comfort. Yeah.
Right. But the thing about these RFIDs, especially these little ones, you see like this little guy here. See these 2 wires sticking out. That's the antenna. The actual chip is inside here.
So what would that be used for?
So the thing about this is that they have like a range of just 2 inches. That's why you have to pass the reader, like with your pet, you have to pass the reader right over it.
Okay.
The thing about the wildlife is that those are able to transmit for miles.
Oh, okay.
And that would fall into the category of maybe like this. So this is an active RFID that has a lithium battery inside of it. So yes, I believe that those would be going to this kind of a format. Mm-hmm. But I really don't know. I'm only guessing that they have not switched over to that kind of it's a little bit expensive to produce.
Okay.
And you usually put these on pretty valuable assets, but hard to say whether they're starting to use RFID on those or not. I'm sure listeners would know and be able to comment and let us know on that.
Right.
So, sure.
Cool. So what out of all of, you have a pile of stuff here, like keychains and card readers, and what can I put on these if I'm programming? Can I program them to do whatever I want?
No, usually not. These are typically, like this little tag here, this tiny little thing. This is pre-programmed at the factory. They pump these things out. You can see like this
the cards.
Big bunch of cards, these
right.
employee cards. You can't program these. Now, some you can, but typically if you want them cheap, you want them for 10 cents a piece, they're not programmable. Like this big roll, you get these in a roll of 1,000 of these things, and they cost a penny a piece.
Oh, wow.
And you stick them on every box. You don't want programmability. First of all, because of the sheer volume.
Right.
You have thousands of these things. You got boxes coming through your warehouse. You got 200,000 boxes of all sizes all sitting around, and every one of them has a tag on it. But you do not want the administrative overhead of trying to program every one of these. All you want is that little 10-digit ID. That's going to key to some database record, and you scan it, bloop, up comes that database record. There's all your data that you program, and you can see where the package has been, how long it's taken to go through each cycle. That's kind of what Standard Time does. You scan these boxes, and it just tells you how long each one has been doing what it's doing.
Right.
Whatever.
Okay, so you held up these chips, and I see some stuff there with like barcodes on it.
Yeah.
Is that different? Is that like a chipless RFID or?
No, I know what you're talking about, though. There is chipless RFIDs. These barcodes, I think, are basically just having the same code as that is embedded into the RFID.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the other side there, I see the chip.
You could scan it with the barcode, or you could scan it with the RFID.
Okay.
And, in my opinion, barcode's going away eventually, but, there's still kind of a dual system here. But you bring that subject up. There is, crazy enough, there is a chipless RFID. Now these have, like we talked about, these have transistors in them. They have enough smarts to be able to transmit their codes, whatever. But there are RFID tags that have no electronics. All they are is a special polymer fibers that are formed in such a way that when you pass radio frequency energy over them, the reader itself can sense that something is out there. Okay?
It's alive.
Yeah, right. It's not getting any information, but it's getting the fact that there is something there and there is a pattern. Okay? It's like SETI, we're looking for extraterrestrials. We sense a pattern. That's all it really does. And so you can make these things out of plastic and no chip at all. And so all you have to do is embed the fibers in such a way that they can
pick up that frequency.
Yeah, it's not really a frequency. It's just a change in the carrier frequency that's transmitted from the reader.
So where do you see that going as far as what that can do someday?
I don't know. I think those are kind of cutting edge, and I really cannot predict the future of that. Typically, I tend to like the idea of the integrated circuit, the smarts inside of it that are able to transmit their codes. But that's really hard for me to say as to how that works. Or whether that's going to be the future or not.
They're doing some crazy stuff out there. So, I mean, if they can make ears out of, I don't know, rubber, and make them work or whatever out of a mouse's back.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. Amen.
Sure. Well, Ray, this is going to be fun. I'm enjoying I'm looking forward to enjoying this podcast because I'm learning a ton of stuff about just tech. I'm always interested in tech, and what I'm finding, especially with the RFIDs, that just using the old technology of stuff.
Yeah.
So radio frequency.
Yeah, right.
To do this stuff, which is just insane. It's bringing technology and creativity together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool to me because I'm a creative guy and I love tech and I like seeing it used in different ways. So I'm looking forward to continuing this podcast in the future to see what other creative ways we can use technology. So, well, folks, that's pretty much it. And join us next time for the podcast. It's sponsored by Standard Time. If you want more information about that, click on the website and the link at the end of this podcast, and we'll catch you soon.